just might be the premier division in all of MMA, and with the last two of the three UFC cards that we've had main evented by bantamweights, we have a premier matchup in this division between Rob Font taking on Adrian Yanez. And Matt, we and everybody else have been mispronouncing Adrian's last name since he's been around, since when he was with the LFA. Now that he's into the UFC, he clarified it on his Twitter not that long ago. It's not Yanez, it's Yanez. And for Adrian Yanez at a Metro Boom and Metro Fight Club, this is a guy that's really been able to turn it on. Like, if you look at it, Yanez hasn't lost a fight since 2018. He's on a giant win streak. He's already 5-0 in the UFC. And he's perfect in those 5 fights at adding extra money to his bank account. 4 performance bonuses, a fight of the night against Davey Grant a couple of matchups ago. And now all of a sudden, Adrian's going, and I know we don't like to go by this, but I think this is a pretty good metric. He's going from fighting the number 105
You just said the rankings were BS.
The Topology rankings. Okay, you go from fighting the 105th ranked bantamweight Tony Kelly to fighting the 11th ranked bantamweight Rob Font. It's a giant step up in competition from Adrian, going from fighting unranked competition to now top ranked competition in a guy like Rob Font, who, for his own right, has main evented 3 shows in a row, a win over Cody Garbrandt and a couple of losses to Jose Aldo and Marlon Vera. And when we talk about these Rob Font fights, win, lose, or draw, Rob Font, especially out of those last 2 fights,
exciting,
overwhelming volume numbers, but his last 2 times out, it was the power of Aldo and the power of Vera that were able to kind of shift the tide in the minds of the judges and win the fights for Aldo and for Vera.
But yeah, this is the wild thing about MMA judging. Like, if people
it's awful.
No, it's not. Like, everybody's awful at it, though, because the criteria is not really clear enough for people to have a great example.
It's written in stone.
I know it's written in stone, but nobody follows the exact example, so it doesn't matter, and that's why I don't get fired up about MMA decisions, because they're all terrible, and there's a lot of close ones and a ton of gray areas. So, for Rob Font, he does have a lot of that output, but there has been a lack of that necessarily huge power shot behind a lot of the jab and the output of a guy like Rob Font, and I'll be interested to see what he does in this matchup against Yanez, because Adrian's a guy who does eat a decent amount of damage. He's not eating massive fight-ending shots by any means, but if you throw a lot of volume, he's not a guy who's going to move his head a ton. He does have good parrying abilities with his hands. He'll move your hands away and counter with his own, but if you do implement kicks, which again, Rob Font, not massive in that area, but something he could do, or if you can just outrange him, and again, that's a very difficult thing to do if you don't have kicks of your own, because a lot of these examples I bring up where Yanez has had difficulty at range is not because he's fighting primary boxers. It's because guys who have kicks have then been able to incorporate some of their punches afterwards. So I think this matchup will be interesting for 2 major points. How will Yanez deal with the volume of a guy like Rob Font, but also we've seen Font get hurt by power shots as of late that we didn't necessarily see him get hurt by earlier on in his career. And I know it's Jose Aldo, I know it's Marlon Vera, those are very heavy-handed fighters, but it is fair to say that Font earlier in his career would eat like sledgehammers and just walk through them. I will be interested to see if Yanez can get on the inside and land his own power shots. How will Rob Font be affected by it? Because I know he didn't get knocked out by Aldo or Vera, but he got hurt more times than I could count both those fights.
Yeah, and he was on skates in the fight against Jose Aldo. There were 2 credited knockdowns for Aldo, but the total significant strikes, 149 to 86 for Font. And then in the fight against Marlon Vera, 271 to 159, but it was a left hook, it was then a knee, it was then a head kick for Vera. They were able to knock down Rob Font through round 2, 3, and round 4. So for Font, he's got to get back to a 3-round atmosphere. He's been off for quite some time since that fight against Marlon Vera, way back last year, almost a full year ago.
That's good for him.
It definitely is, and 35 for Rob Font is a little tricky, but you look at it for Font in the UFC, 9-5 through the run. His strike differential number overall, 6.38 to 3.95. So it is tricky that way. Obviously for Yanez, the biggest step up that he's had so far in his career, already 19 pro fights. We used to compare him to Jorge Masvidal that's in the co-main event coming up this weekend because he'll mix in the leg kicks into his combination. And he does look like him. But if you look at the kicks that he was able to go out there and throw, 17 of his 64 significant strikes against Randy Costa, chopping the wood, as Daniel Cormier would say. And we know it in the first round, Costa was able to land from the outside.
Just way too hot.
And then Yanez figured it out in the second round. But the wins in the UFC, Victor Rodriguez, he dropped Gustavo Lopez with a counter shot in the second round, finished him with another counter in the third. Randy Costa, Davey Grant, Tony Kelly. not a lot of guys that are still in the UFC, but the Davey Grant fight was a
I thought
very,
he looked
very
good
fun
against
one.
Grant, though, to be fair.
It was a fight of the night. Judge Tony Weeks scored at 30-27. Grant, the other two had at 29-28.
But Grant's a good fighter. Like, even if you have a close fight with him, you're proving something to a lot of people.
For Yanez, even the win that Yanez had over Karl Estrada, the main event of LFA 78, was a nice back and forth. Fights outside of the UFC, some of the losses, Miles Johns, Domingo Pilarte, and Levi Mowles. Good fighters in their own right. But yeah, Yanez has to be able to figure out the jab, the 1-2, the mix and the uppercut of a guy like Rob Font. Rob Font will kind of dip level changes to make you think. Yanez will mix in those hooks to the body, to the head. And the thing that Yanez does well, once he's able to figure out cutting off the cage in a fight, he can kind of just mix it in from there. First round against Gustavo.
Like Allison Chain sang about, you become the man in the box.
Adrian Yanez has to get through a first round to win the second and the third, in my opinion, after watching his fights, because even Gustavo Lopez, round the outside. The fight against Randy Costa was pushing the pace on the outside. You go down through it. Once Yanez figures it out, he boxes you in with the lead hook, and then he starts doing his work. That's when you're in trouble. The fight that I went back to and watched, Matt, for this one, can you guess which one for Rob Font?
I watched the David Grant, the Randy Costa one like multiple times, so I'm assuming one of those two.
No, the fight for Rob Font. Rob Font won the place.
Oh, sorry. Tiny Vitor. But it was too long ago, so don't take it into consideration.
Main event was Ali Quinta taking on Kevin Lee for the second time. Rob Font fought the second-ranked flyweight, moving up to 135. The champ over with Bellator, Sergio Pettis. Rob Font tucking the chin, working in the level changes, working in the jab and the right hand, setting things up with the uppercut. He dominated all of the action of that fight. All three judges.
Sergio didn't look good, though.
Sergio.
But Sergio stayed on the outside, didn't go for any takedowns, wasn't that dedicated to his own combinations.
Yanez can struggle with those things on the outside.
But the difference is, Yanez is a guy who's going to try to get on the inside to land his own power shots. Sergio Pettis is not a one-punch knockout guy. Like, I know he knocked out Horiguchi with a spinning back fist. He lost every second of that fight leading up to that, though. I just don't know, Pettis needs the kicks to have success, even though he's not Anthony. He still needs to mix that in and have his own takedowns. I don't think Yanez needs any kind of grappling to be able to win this fight. I really do just worry about the overall durability of a guy like Rob Font, because I've seen him eat a lot of big shots in the feet at this point. And it's not just him getting rocked or getting wobbled or getting knocked down. His face is starting to show meaningful damage as he does get hit in some of these fights. And I know they are 25-minute atmospheres, they're 5-round fights, but those are things that does concern me as you start to age in a division.
Well, a giant step up for Yanez. He is the favorite in the matchup for Rob Font. Gets to come back down to 3-round atmosphere, and his last 3-round fight, Marlon Moraes, where Marlon decided he was a wrestler. He's lost 6 fights in a row. We have a look at the Tapology votes. Matt, surprised us there to you. I'm going to say over under 72.5% for Metro Boomin Metro Fight Club's Adrian Yanez.
I think they'll be under.
Think they're going to be under? Oh, you looked at these before.
I did not get some wrong.
You got one wrong. 1,833 total votes, 71% Yanez, 41% by decision, 51% by knockout for the 29% that have Rob Font. 81% by decision. Can Adrian Yanez knock out Rob Font like the fans say that he can?
I feel like I came into this video really thinking Rob Font was going to win, if I'm being honest. I really thought his output would kind of stifle the movement of a guy like Yanez, because what I do like out of Rob Font is he does remind me a lot, and I bring this up a lot, is when Aljamain Sterling fought Petr Yan. Petr Yan's a great striker, but if you throw a lot at him, he is kind of stuck in a defensive shell. He doesn't really have the opportunities to throw on his own, and I am curious to see if Yanez is going to find himself in some of those positions, focusing a lot more on his defense than his offense. The difference is, Yanez has way more power than Cody Garbrandt at this stage of his career, I would say, at bantamweight, and Font, I just worry about him eating some of those big shots. I think Rob can win this fight by decision. I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever, but he's going to have to eat some damaging shots to get there, and at 35 years old, I'm a little bit concerned. So, ever so slightly, I'm going with Yanez, but no, the reason I said under 72% is, I think Rob Font has a phenomenal chance to win this fight.
Yeah, and that's why I have him to win it.
His level of competition has been ridiculous in the UFC, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, Yanez, I've loved the rise. I picked him in all of these fights.
Knockdowns from
I absolutely love it, but for Rob Font, a 3-round fight definitely helps him. The time away definitely helps him. The footwork's still there. When's Rob Font getting hit in these? It's on the half beat, and it's when he's planting his feet and sticking around for that receipt. So if Yanez is able to hit him on those, that's the very best. But for Font, he doesn't have 1-round cardio like some of these other guys have struggled with, and some of these other guys have also struggled with. My back's up against the fence. Now where do I go? There's nowhere.
To be fair, though, Font does struggle with that. He struggled with that against Vera. That's the position Font doesn't excel at, I'd say.
For me, going with Rob Font, we're split on the pick. Let us know down below in the comment section. Are you going with Yanez in this giant meteoric win streak, or will Rob Font find the win column once more? Matt, we move forward. I mean, listen, you have a giant fight coming up next that you are not going to want to miss, so keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, as we always say. Let's get into it.